Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to another episode of CasualCraft. I'm RedRipz, your Renegade Master, Dreadlock Caster, right here today for another game of StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm in my online web series CasualCraft. Now today it's a TVT map between two Masters League players, and in the top right hand corner of this map, Neo Planet S, we have LuCifer, or is it LuCifer? We'll go with LuCifer, the evil red Terran in true devilish colours here. And in the opposite corner, in the bottom left-hand corner, in the blue, we have Barcode. Yep, so that's another Barcode player here. So, don't know what his name is, but we'll go with it. So, yeah, this is, as I said, this is a Master League game, so we should see some pretty interesting builds out of these two players. I've been told it's a good game, although I haven't actually watched it myself yet. So we'll see now as I get on with this live cast of another game of StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm. Now here I am once again sat here in the sweltering heat in Newcastle, completely bemused as to why it's so damn hot in this city at the moment. Well, global warming or something, I guess, but we'll go with it. We'll go with it. Now straight away out of these two players, we're seeing identical builds here. This is totally obvious. Common stuff in, especially in like Master League and things. Everyone's got the timings down so well that they pretty much can start everything exactly at the same time. And here we go. There's barely 2 seconds between them. Although actually at this stage of the game, out the Barcode player, we are slightly later barracks, but only just slightly. It really is just a small timing thing rather than anything else there. Now, and of course, we've seen the scouting SCV coming out here from LuCifer. This shouldn't really tell him too much at the early stage of the game, although he'll be there to look out for early command centres and that sort of thing, see what his opponent is up to at this particularly early stage of the game. Now, here in the bottom left-hand corner, we've got a refinery coming out for our Barcoded player here. This obviously is nice and early gas. We should be seeing some earlier tech units out of him than we will be out of LuCifer, I'd imagine, although actually no, LuCifer's now gone stuck down his refinery as well. So we'll guess we'll just have to wait and see what the players are up to here as the SCV arrives from LuCifer in the base of Barcode here, and proceeds to have a good little march around, see what he can see what he can find. Although, frankly, at this stage, not much. He's going to be counting up the SCVs there, seeing that everything's fairly normal. No obvious early cheeses coming in. He's obviously spotted the barracks, so that means that there's no sort of proxy or anything coming out of our Barcode player. Although, great attempt at surround there out of Barcode, and doesn't actually quite manage to catch LuCifer's SCV there. Although LuCifer's SCV is now completely walled in, so we won't be seeing him making any sort of escape anytime soon. We might see continued harassment from Barcode's SCVs here as he does run backwards and forwards, although it is the Marine that is going to eventually clear that up. Now, and then once again, here in LuCifer's base, we're seeing mules. The first mules come down as the orbital commander's now finished up. We're seeing the first lot of Marines coming out, and it looks like we're going to be getting instantly an add-on here straight away, which is going to be the reactor for LuCifer. So this should be something along the lines of just double pumping out. Probably going to be Marines, I'd imagine, unless he's going to get an early Reaper or two, just like our friend Barcode over here, who's actually just going to get them out one at a time here. I'd imagine this is just going to be a single Reaper just for a little bit of scouting information, rather than for any sort of extraneous pressure. It's probably a little bit late actually to really sort of cause any troubles with this, as there are now Marines coming out in the main base of LuCifer here. And behind this, of course, there's going to be a command centre. It's coming down directly behind the natural. This is a much safer place to build it than it is directly in the natural. Of course, as you can just build it here and then in true Terran style, just float on down, rock out in your natural base here as the Reaper for Barcode comes in. He's going to be having a little look around, see if you can get any information in response to LuCifer's successful scout of his base. Although actually the SCV did die in the end, so it won't get quite all the information. As the Reaper now jumps into the base, he looks like he might be getting picked off by the Marines. If the Marines can just step one either side of this thing, they should be able, of the mineral line here, they should be able to catch him out before he escapes. And yeah, it does look like he will be getting cleaned up here without getting too much in the way of scouting information. I'm not entirely sure if he saw the factory, although it's a pretty obvious manoeuvre to be taking at this point. So a quick look. No, he's not seen the factory come down there yet. Meanwhile, we're seeing the second base come down on the low ground out of the Barcode player here. Assumingly he can get this finished up in decent time, it shouldn't actually leave him too far behind, of course, because command centre from LuCifer here is actually going to finish up first, but it does still have to float all the way down to this second base. Meanwhile, we're seeing orbital command coming out of him here, so he's not actually going to float it down straight away, which is something that our Barcode player can be doing. Obviously, he can start populating that with SCVs straight away, as his main base will be completely packed by then. And he should be able to move out pretty nicely. Now, it does look like behind this we're going to be seeing double Hellions coming out of the Barcode player here. These will be able to go in and do a little bit of harass, although they're actually going to struggle to get past the the Marines and Hellions, of course, of LuCifer, which are going to be stood at the front here guarding up. There's a bunker going down as well, so it does look like LuCifer will just be bunkering up here and continuing to macro behind this. Meanwhile, our barcode player is finishing up his armory here. This is, I guess, he's going to be going into Hellbats here, since TVT these days has been accused of being Hellbat versus Hellbat rather than true Terran versus Terran anymore. To be honest, I hope we don't see too much in the way of mass Hellbats out, although I wouldn't be surprised if we did. It'd be quite nice to see a nice mech game or something interesting such like. Meanwhile, we've got Barcode's Hellions here, just having a little scout around, see if we can find any sort of third base from LuCifer, although there's nothing of the sort yet. He's playing about as safe a build as our Barcode player here. Meanwhile, of course, the Hellions of LuCifer here are going to be having a little wander around, see if they can spot any third bases themselves. Obviously not going to find anything as there isn't anything out there. However, they did manage to pick off what looked like an SCV at the front there, and yeah, we've got a worker killed each. And that's all very dandy, to be honest. So we've actually got virtually identical builds coming out of these players here. They're not completely the same, but they're very, very similar. They're going for similar things, 2 bases and that kind of thing. However, we are seeing a slightly more mechanised build out of our barcode player here, as he's proceeding to get out a whole bunch of Hellbats. And I'd imagine any second now we'll be seeing some gosh, I'm terrible with unit names today. We're going to be seeing some Medivacs coming out here over the starport. I would imagine before too long, and those will be going in for drops. As is the typical sort of Terran-y way to play the game now, although we have actually got some defensive Vikings out here for LuCifer to watch for these sort of drops, so actually they may not go quite as well as perhaps our friend here had hoped. Meanwhile, of course, LuCifer is going to be pushing slightly forward with his Hellbats, although he's not going to go and sit outside the front of at the front of Barcode's base, which frankly I think might be more sensible. If he sat sort of here, it would allow him to make sure that there's nothing spilling out anytime soon, and of course if he does hear our units are under attack or anything such like, you can obviously just grab them on his hotkey and move them back, as he does have them all on hotkey too there. This isn't going to really get any information out. Meanwhile, now we're seeing missile turrets come down from our barcode player here in his second base. This is really just more drop defense, I feel. I don't think there's going to be any worry too much about Banshees or anything such like, as really we're not really seeing that sort of play out of modern Terrans that much anymore, despite the new cloaked Banshee cheaper upgrade which came into the new patch, I believe. I think they halved the cost of it. Is that right? I'm not entirely sure. I'll be honest, I'm a Zerg player, so I'm a little bit rusty on my Terran, but I'm going to hopefully over the next few episodes pick that up, and we'll be able to get some better Terran casts out of me as I learn some more in the way of builds, and yeah, get more out of the game. Now, meanwhile, of course, at the bottom here, seeing patrolling Hellions wandering around for LuCifer here. He's going to drop those in, by the look of it, into the main base here of our barcode player, although our barcode player does have so many missile turrets out now at this stage, he's actually really going to struggle to get any drops in. And I think basically at this point everyone's just preempting massive amounts of drops, so actually getting the drops in is turning out to be more and more difficult, as the barcode drop does actually set out here as well, and we are going to be seeing a Hellbat, sorry, a Medivac full of Hellbats versus a Medivac full of Hellions at this point. It's quite amusing in that respect. Meanwhile, we're starting to see upgrades coming out from both players now. We're getting the first in the way of the infantry weapon upgrades, and we're getting vehicle weapon upgrades out of barcode here. So it actually looks like we will be seeing a straight up bio ball versus mech game here if the players do follow the upgrades into their respective tech trees here. We've already got combat shields and the like out for the Marines. Meanwhile, at the second base of the barcode player, we haven't seen anything quite like that yet. Have we actually got, what have we been doing here? I think we're seeing, yeah, it's just the vehicle weapons. We're not getting anything in the way of other upgrades yet, so yeah, we might have to see how that one goes. Meanwhile, of course, we're having a little bit of an engagement up here as the single supply depot has been taken down here by 4 Hellions from LuCifer here on there. I'm not actually sure if there's going to be any particular response to this. It's I think is it a scouting supply depot? I'm not really sure the purpose of building it all the way up there, although I guess it might be preemptive to a third base or something. No, I'm not sure the logic of that. But meanwhile, of course, LuCifer is going to be taking a third base. Floating this over now, he's going to get a bunker down here as well for defence. It shouldn't be too difficult for him to hold actually at this point, as our barcode player, although he is actually going to be moving out for some sort of drop, I'd imagine, if we bring up the troops like we're supposed to. Yep, here come 2 siege tanks here for LuCifer. These are useful on the ground, although they're not actually going to stop any drops directly. We're going to have to see some more in the way of anti-air there for LuCifer if he's going to stop the drops coming in here at the top, which we do seem to be getting now out of our barcode player. Has he actually seen this base? No, not whatsoever yet. So he's going to get a little bit of a shock when he gets in here. Although by shock I mean he's going to be able to just sit up here somewhere, drop in, and start killing things off very, very nicely. And once the Terran's army from LuCifer's been pulled around here, we should expect to see more drops in the main base. However, he's just going to be pulling in here directly up against things, and oh, that was a medivac straight down, well caught by LuCifer there, as barcode does completely mismanage his unit there, and they basically won. One of his medivacs just fell straight away with very, very little to show for the effort, and of course losing the Hellbats inside is a big resource loss there at this stage of the game for our barcoded player. Meanwhile, of course, he's just going to be building a massive sort of flamey army at the front with some siege tanks sat behind it. This is quite a comparatively slow-moving army despite the speed of the Hellions, just because the siege tanks just slow everything down. You've got to shuffle forward into each engagement as opposed to just straight up A moving in well, Zerg style, I guess. Seems to be the common misconception at the moment, although people will argue at the end of time about who has the most difficult army to play. Of course, now we've seen the barcode player take a third base here. We've seen a little bit of action here in the middle. A Scout Hellion getting taken down there by our barcode player's army. Meanwhile, LuCifer is going to be grabbing his bio-ball together, and we're seeing him move out down towards the south from him. This should be pretty interesting now. At this point of the game, let's just have a little look and see who's got the most units. LuCifer is actually ahead on economy at the moment with more SCVs and a much earlier third base. However, it does look... I don't really know who can win in this stage. I mean, like, our barcode player actually does have more Vikings out, so he does technically have air control. Although LuCifer, with his massive amount of medivacs, as long as he can keep them out the way of the Vikings, should be able to help heal up these units way easier than you... Well, with much more ease than our barcode player will be able to actually repair his own units. So any damage done to LuCifer at this stage is going to be temporary as long as he doesn't actually lose the units themselves. The trick really then with LuCifer is to basically siege up here and to poke in and out a bit and try and draw the barcode player's army forward so he can hit it with his own siege tanks. He doesn't really want to move outside of the cover of the siege tanks with the Marines, as they will just get absolutely blown to smithereens by this meching Terran's army here. Meanwhile, we've got a bunch of Vikings on the patrol move here at the front. These will be here to deal with anything in the way of the medivacs, obviously, which like Vikings, well, just go through medivacs, that's what they're there for. We're seeing an extra command centre come down at the front here for barcode. I wouldn't be surprised to see a PF out of this, although obviously Terrans do love to get massive amounts of orbital commands out, so they can really call in the mules on an extra basis and cut down the SCV count, so that it allows them to build a bigger army essentially. At the top here, meanwhile, we're going to see a drop in the third base of LuCifer. This isn't actually going to do too much. He takes out 2 SCVs with a third feeling some damage, a third one falling now, and this drop is going to be stopped relatively swiftly by our barcoded player. Meanwhile, we're seeing a little bit of a flanking manoeuvre from a second army of LuCifer, who's actually split his army in 2 now. This could be interesting if the Terran player isn't able to defend evenly, although he's actually managed to split his army in such a way that he should be able to deal with it pretty well. We've got quite a nice little sort of half wall here from the command centre as well, which really does limit the access that the Marines will be able to get to the front of his base if he does move in. We're actually seeing just a massive doom drop here from LuCifer, who just straight up loses pretty much 2/3 of his of his medivacs there, which was really unfortunate for him. Due to the massive amount of missile turrets here, although he's actually going to be doing quite a lot of damage here. The SCVs themselves aren't actually going to die, and it's just going to be pretty much cleared straight up, so I wouldn't really say that was actually worth it in the long run, although we are seeing a little bit more action out of the bottom base here from LuCifer. It's not really going anything much further. I'm going to take a stab in the dark that drop was cleared up there by LuCifer in his main base, although I didn't actually see it happen. I was a little bit too busy at the second base of our barcode player here. Meanwhile, of course, we're still seeing the Vikings on the patrol here. Let's see if we're going to get any sort of later game tech out. No, looking like more and more in the way of Hellbats. Relatively traditional sort of meching play here now from our barcoded player, who's essentially just getting out as many siege tanks as he can with Hellbats to absorb and tank the damage. Now Hellbats are obviously a really interesting unit because you can actually heal them with your medivacs as well, although it doesn't. I guess it isn't really that popular a decision for Terran players, as it obviously will be the only unit that you'll be healing at the time. We are seeing a little engagement here down at the bottom now from LuCifer here, as actually the barcode player is actually going to be able to push out one of these siege tanks really successfully here with the Hellbats. That's really unfortunate for LuCifer, so he's going to lose all these siege tanks in the siege line here, although now he's actually going to move in the middle of the map here. He's actually completely cut off this third base of barcode here from the rest of his bases here. He's the last of these Hellbats will be getting taken out there, and the few siege tanks that are here really remain to defend, although while there has been a drop there in the main base for LuCifer, and he is going to be pulling out some of the tech labs and other similar structures from Barcode here, who's actually not really managing to defend this at all. I didn't realise quite a few units were in the main base of the Barcode player here, and it's as the Hellbats start to fall, we're losing a few Marines as well, and some of the siege tanks here. It's looking like our Barcode player is actually going to really struggle to defend this, especially with his third base completely cut off now, and he's not able to support that any further. If LuCifer can just pull some more units around, he should be able to move into this base without very much difficulty whatsoever. However, at the same time, he's doing a lot of damage to the main base of our Barcode player, who's actually lost two buildings there. I think he lost, perhaps some more, and like obviously the number of workers killed here for LuCifer is much higher for him here over our Barcode player, although interestingly enough, Barcode has killed off a lot more units. That is probably pretty much because LuCifer is using he's using Marines, which you have a lot more of than you would do with your Siege Tank Hellbat composition. So the number of units lost really isn't actually quite as telling as you'd imagine. I think an indication of how many resources have been used up would probably be a much better idea. And as you can see here, actually, LuCifer has spent a lot more money on his army at this stage of the game than our Barcode player, so that should give him an advantage. And you can see here it actually shows again in the supply caps of both players. Meanwhile, LuCifer's going for a fourth base now. He's got that down. He's going to be bringing SCVs in from his main, as that is now completely mined out. We're also seeing this additional PF base of LuCifer. Our Barcode player here is going to fall the massive amount of siege tanks that are sat outside his base, although actually it has allowed the movement upwards of LuCifer's main army here, has allowed our Barcode Terran to regain control of his third base again here, so he will be able to defend that much more easily now, as he can basically sit his army here in the middle and move down here if necessary, or even through to his extra base. We're seeing, I don't know if it's technically a secret expansion here from Barcode, although it is a little bit out of the way. Although I guess he's going to struggle to move into this base here, so it does allow him to get a fourth base out in total. Meanwhile, we're seeing continued upgrades from both players. Just from LuCifer here, we're getting the Terran upgrades level 3, we're seeing Siege Weapons level 2, Ship Weapons level 2 coming out, and just continued Hellbat and Siege Tank production here from Barcode, as these do appear to be the armies of choice for both players, and it does look like they'll be continuing forward with basically Marine Bio versus Mech seems to be the crack for the game here. Now we're seeing quite a lot of missile turrets come out for Barcode here. I think this is that's interesting for a fifth expansion here though as well in the gold. It's risky, but I don't actually think that he's going to struggle to hold that, as there's no way that LuCifer's seen that. Although LuCifer has now discovered this advanced PF on the bottom right hand corner of the map here from Barcode, and we'll just straight up take that out without very little response, which is a bit of a shame really, but obviously there wasn't really much the Barcode player could have done, as the vast majority of his army is in the middle here defending against, well, if this army moves down, he's going to have a lot of issue with it again. So here, yeah, once again we're getting scans coming in on the base here for LuCifer, and it does look like he'll be going in for a drop, although he's not. Yeah, the medivacs are going to survive. We are going to get some units dropping in here. We're going to see quite a lot of damage here from the SCVs of LuCifer, although of Barcode here, although it is actually up for the Hellbats to come and clear this up. However, with the sheer number of Marauders there, all the Hellbats are actually going to fall. I'm not sure if we're going to see the end of this. Yeah, there we go. That's the last of the Hellbats falling down now, and with just SCVs to defend here and a few Vikings floating over, our Barcode player is really looking at quite a lot of trouble at this stage of the game now. We're seeing not really any sort of difference there in terms of numbers of SCVs counted. Obviously LuCifer will still be ahead on his total army size, although it does actually look like Barcode will be able to come in and clear this up now. However, this does weaken the defence up here, so it would be interesting if we saw LuCifer make some sort of move in now, although he actually does have he's not really going to be able to go through that. He needs Barcode to attack into him rather than the other way around. Actually, God, we're seeing all those SCVs drop down as they were rallied down here now, which is really unfortunate. And actually we can, he's going to see the edge of that anyway, so it does look like LuCifer will be taking out this extra command centre as well. And really, LuCifer's doing a very, very good job here of just keeping our Barcode player on a single base while he gets all his upgrades and things out. It's actually quite impressive, quite how all over him he is. Although at this point now, our Barcode player is just going to be able to but push out of his second base and clear out this hold on LuCifer's army here. So it does look like things will be evening up slightly here as the Vikings do land and start taking out the last of these Marauders, who have absolutely no medivac support, so they will be falling relatively quickly. Meanwhile, we're seeing a massive amount of Marauders come in from LuCifer here at the bottom end of the map. We're going to be seeing this third base once again for Barcode should be falling here. if yeah, it doesn't look like they'll be yeah, oh, we're going to engage in the army. Yeah, it looks like Massive Marauder is going to just engage directly into the siege tank army. It should just go straight through these siege tanks as long as he can get in there before they get sieged up, before any Hellbat support turns up. Although actually Hellbat support has turned up now. He isn't going to be able to target down this command centre because he just have massive amounts of Marauders, and they're going to be stimming into their deaths against the Hellbats there. So yeah, this base doesn't actually fall once again, despite my my prediction there. Although it does look like did the SCVs escape? Yes, the SCVs have escaped, so that's quite alright then. Hasn't really been a major loss, although it has been some lost mining time, which is a real shame at this stage of the game for Barcode, because with LuCifer on so many bases and with no real harassment in response from Barcode, it does look like LuCifer is just going to walk through to well, quite a substantial lead here in this game. I don't really see how Barcode is going to do that much in the way to stop this here. Although, interestingly, our Barcode player doesn't have anything that can shoot up, so the Vikings here are just quite happily sat on top of Barcode's army, making sure it's not going anywhere too unsavoury. Meanwhile, of course, we're seeing the fourth base now is going to be defended here by LuCifer. It doesn't look like it'll be all that successful against this massive stutter-stepping line of siege tanks here, which I love to see massive amounts of siege tanks in games. It always amusing. Although with the pre-siege tanks of LuCifer here, he's actually in a slightly stronger position than our barcoded players. The siege tanks do just move in and just get blown the heck. Jesus Christ, that was a lot of siege tanks lost there. Wow. It really does look like Barcode has pretty much just thrown away his army there at that stage. It's really unfortunate because he did have a massive sort of lead in terms of number of tanks and stuff, but with him attacking at such a strong position, LuCifer here, it's really difficult for the Barcoded player to actually make any sort of moves in there. Thanks to the Vikings of LuCifer, which seem to have moved on now, doing so much useful scouting information in slightly earlier game down at the bottom of the map here. Where we were looking before. Now, if we just continue watching this engagement here instead of clicking randomly all over the map like I was just doing there, we should hopefully be seeing some well, some sort of gaps open up between the players now, as LuCifer really does rocket into the lead in supply. He's getting the last of his upgrades now for his units here, as the armory does finish up its ship upgrades. Oh, sorry, no, it's finished its ship defensive upgrades. He hasn't actually gone for the attack upgrades on the ground units I thought he had. Which is fair enough. I mean, he's getting quite a lot of siege tanks out, but he's generally just going bio, and which he has got 3-3 on, so those units are incredibly strong now, especially with a lot of medevac support. Although we could probably do with putting some of these units back. Here we go. Yeah, it's very nice there from LuCifer. Okay, so the Barcode player once again is building up his mech army. We've got a whole bunch of Hellbats out once again. We're getting Thors coming down. We're seeing more and more in the way of siege tanks again, and yeah, it's generally looking quite bleak for our Barcoded player here, despite the sort of the size of his army that he's got here. The sheer advantage that LuCifer has with the vast amount of bases that he's got. I mean, he's got 2 mining bases still, whereas Barcode here is mining out the last of his 3rd base here, and it's just, there's really not much going on here in the way of mining for him now. It's really, at this stage, it's all on this base for our Barcoded player if he wants to keep his economy going. Meanwhile, LuCifer is going to be moving into the top and bottom of this 3rd base here with various different levels of engagement here. The siege tanks are quite happily going through a lot of this mech army, although the actual number of SCVs there defending that Thor has made it really quite fun for our Barcoded player to just push forward and kill off the last of these siege tanks here. Meanwhile, we are going to be floating a command centre over here, it seems, from LuCifer, who is quite intent on taking this base, even though there isn't really that much to be gained in the way of minerals here. He does look to just want to block it. More than anything else, although actually going to have to move back now with the Viking turning up as well. Meanwhile, we're seeing more of an army moving down now. We're seeing a bunch more Marauders coming down with Marines, and we've got some more siege tanks in there. Meanwhile, Barcode does have his 3rd mining base up again now. He's almost completely mined out 3 bases, while our Terran player has sort of 1.5 mining bases with a 3rd incoming. Well, with 2.5 mining bases once this one's down and mining properly. While, of course, as I say, Barcode he's only on 51 supply. He's really struggling to remain in this game at this stage. His economy's just... basically, he's been starved out by LuCifer, was his tactic in this game. He sat his army here and defended bases for so long that essentially our Barcode players are real difficult at getting any sort of economy going. And with this moving in on the 3rd base now as well for LuCifer here, it's just looking bleaker and bleaker for our Barcoded player as these units will not actually really be... yeah, they are going to be able to kill that off because the SCVs have stopped repairing, and it does look like this base will once again be falling here. And as our Barcoded player does finally call GG. Well played on both players, and yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much once again for watching here. I hadn't actually picked up on this massive wall of Stargates before, but not Stargates, sorry, Starports before. Yeah, no, that was a really interesting game. I mean, basically, it was a gigantic bio versus mech game. I've not really seen that many TVTs actually. Since, in fact, no, this is my first TVT I've casted. Since I started casting actually, so yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience for me. Clearly I've got a lot more to learn about Terran builds. However, I'm going to work on that, as it's an obvious gap in my knowledge. I'm much more familiar with Zerg and Protoss, mostly because as a Zerg player I tend to have a lot more issue with Protoss than I do with Terran. With Terran it's kind of like bailing bust him, if it doesn't work, macro up and hope you can get out Ultralisks. Whereas with against Protoss as a Zerg player, I've just been having such a nightmarish time with Void Rays recently that I've really put a lot more work into learning their builds. However, no, it's really good fun casting a TVT. I always, to be honest, TVT has always been my favourite mirror matchup, so it's really good to see a game like this, especially out of two Masters League players here, as Barco really put up a stellar defence against quite a lot of this play here from LuCifer, but LuCifer just quite happily just sat here, up here as well, and also continued to deny the third base down here for Barcode, who just couldn't get out of these two bases. And as we can see, with so little midnals left, we just really had no economy going for him, and he just couldn't stand the continued thoroughfare of troops from LuCifer here. Now, well, thank you once again for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Any feedback is very much appreciated, and I hope you've had an absolutely fantastic day yourselves. I've been RedRipz, your radio Dreadlock caster. This is CasualCraft, and we're back another time for another game. And yeah, see you tomorrow. Thank you very much, and GG, well played, both players. Thank you.